Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a glorious show for you today that truly captures the human spirit and the desire for freedom. It's a really artistic thing we have, and I expect it to be award nominated. What say you, Niall?
I was actually coughing anyway. I wasn't just choking on those particular words, but I'm sure it'll live up to all of your highest expectations. And you've got a little bit of a haircut there, Robby.
The commenters and viewers demanded it, and I give the people what they want. So I got a haircut yesterday.
Responsive to audience concerns. I like to see it. Well, in other news, what is on your radar?
Well, speaking of a triumph of human freedom, big news last night, Ross Ulbricht is a free man. Ulbricht received a full pardon from President Trump, who had made this promise to the Libertarian Party and its chairwoman, Angela McArdle, that he would, in fact, pardon Ross. This is a praiseworthy move for President Trump, and as someone who has long advocated for Ross Ulbricht to be released from prison, I am personally very grateful that Trump kept his promise and freed Ross on the first full day of his presidency. It's also a win for the Libertarian Party and its leadership, which met with Trump and lobbied him to pledge to pardon Ross in exchange for some level of implicit support from the party. Most of all, it's a win for Ross Ulbricht himself and for his mother, Lynn Ulbricht, who has worked tirelessly as an advocate for Ross's release for the last decade. I have met Lynn on many occasions, and I am so thrilled that her unfailing belief in her son's innocence has finally culminated in him winning back his freedom. It's also a well-deserved loss for a criminal justice system that sentenced Ross Ulbricht to prison for life based on an unproven accusation. Law enforcement officials did not like what Ross Ulbricht was doing. They didn't like that he maintained his innocence in the face of the most serious charges, and they punished him for it. They left him to rot in prison for a decade, but now the tables have turned. Now, some people probably watching are asking themselves, who is Ross Ulbricht? Why does this case matter? It's true that if you're a libertarian or involved with the Libertarian Party, you're probably already familiar with Ross's plight. Libertarians have long championed his release. For everyone else, let me give you some context. Ross Ulbricht was born in 1984 and grew up in Austin, Texas. He was influenced by libertarian ideas and thinkers from an early age and professed support for Libertarian Congressman and presidential candidate Ron Paul. Ulbricht eventually created Silk Road, an online marketplace based in some libertarian economic principles that operated in the dark web, allowing users to pay cryptocurrency for all sorts of goods and services, including illegal ones like drugs. Now, this did not sit well with the authorities, obviously, and they arrested Ross for running the platform. He was charged with narcotics trafficking, distribution of narcotics by means of the internet, narcotics trafficking conspiracy, continual criminal enterprise, conspiracy to aid and abet computer hacking, conspiracy to traffic in fraudulent identity documents, and money laundering conspiracy. Keep in mind that no one alleged that Ulbricht personally traded or sold illegal narcotics or profited from any sort of criminal activity. He was just the guy who created the platform where such transactions could take place. This would be like holding Mark Zuckerberg personally liable if he used Facebook Marketplace to sell cocaine. No doubt there are some people who do want to do that, but my question is, where does it end? Is the CEO of Verizon responsible if you talk to your drug dealer on the phone? But that's not all. Odiously, the government also asserted that Ulbricht was guilty of using Silk Road to hire mercenaries to kill people whom he feared were working with the authorities to ensnare him. This charge was never substantiated, however, and Ulbricht's defenders maintained that it's a vicious lie. One of the purported targets of the murder-for-hire scheme later said it was all BS invented by the government. He was not killed, nor was anyone else. This charge of murder for hire was eventually dropped, in fact. But by raising the issue in the first place, there's some reason to think the prosecutors motivated the judge to impose a harsher sentence on Ulbricht after he was found guilty. Ulbricht, of course, paid the trial penalty, i.e., because he did not accept a plea deal and instead maintained his innocence, the judge threw the book at him. He ended up getting a life sentence, served the next 11 years in prison. Now, my colleagues at the libertarian magazine Reason have written extensively about Ross's unfair treatment for years and advocated for his release. Here's a trailer for a documentary by my friend Zach Weissmuller going over some of these details.
This is a drawing by Ross Ulbricht, who is an inmate at the United States Penitentiary in Tucson, Arizona, a maximum security federal prison.
I'll spend the next few decades in this cage. Then, sometime later this century, I'll grow old and die. I'll finally leave prison, but I'll be in a body bag.
Ross was arrested at 29. Now he's 40. He faces a double life sentence plus 40 years with no possibility of parole for creating the Silk Road, a dark web marketplace that facilitated $1.2 billion in Bitcoin-denominated transactions. But a second chance might be coming from an unlikely savior.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht.
Trump made a deal with the Libertarian Party, and now Ross might not have to spend his middle and old age behind bars. He might not have to leave in a body bag if Trump makes good on his promise. Will he?
Now, today, President Donald Trump has made good on his promise. On this issue, at least, the Libertarian Party's strategy of appealing to Trump has paid off. I'm very happy about it. So this has been, Niall, an important cause for libertarians for a long time, and it was something that the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party, who I've interviewed on the show several times, actually did meet with Trump. Remember, he was invited to speak to the Libertarian Party, and the Libertarian Party still ran a candidate, but that candidate, who I've also interviewed on the show, feels that he didn't get a lot of support from the party infrastructure itself, which is more favorable to Donald Trump. It's kind of very, very interesting political strategy, but one of the arguments for doing that was to get exactly this outcome, the pardoning of Ross Ulbricht. So this is a promise that was made and kept immediately, and we're very happy about it.
So first of all, I think it is creditable to you and all the people who campaigned. And I've known people who were imprisoned, I thought, unjustly and in some cases clearly falsely, and that is an enormously traumatic experience for people. You mentioned that you've met his mother a number of times, and I think, I'm sure that's a difficult thing for her to go through. Aside from the issue of whether he did or did not, solicit somebody to murder people, which you have laid out, he's clearly not this is not someone who was ever convicted of violent crimes, so that obviously blunts any particular objection I have to his release. I think in cases like this, we were talking about this in a different context yesterday, how certain cases become kind of cause célèbres for different ideological tendencies or wings. So on the left, people like Leonard Peltier or Assata Shakur, and here in the Libertarian wing, Ross Ulbricht. I'm just curious about his case, and I'm not saying, he should be locked up forever, but just on a philosophical level, if you make something available that facilitates criminal activity, that is generally a crime.
Well, yes, to be clear, there's no doubt that he broke the law,
right,
with respect to the setting up this
so
platform where illegal. Now, we philosophically, libertarians, don't believe drugs should be illegal. I think you should be able to buy and sell even hardcore drugs. I totally support an end to prohibition and the legalization of drugs. But drugs are illegal. Now people consume drugs, it's illegal to do so in various contexts. It's conflicting city, state, and federal level. There's all sorts of different things. I don't think, and I'm obviously not speaking on behalf of him or the family, I don't think they really contend that he was innocent of creating he did create this platform. Now, he steadfastly maintains innocence from the murder aspect of it, and there's a lot more that I won't go into, and I'm not as clear on as a lot of other people followed it closely, but that there were dirty cops actually involved in it as well, posing as various people, including perhaps people posing as him because it was an administrator. It was dark web, so it's very anonymous kind of activity. It's like, well, who actually is this administrator? And were there other people who were able to use the administrator title? That's getting a little bit far afield.
Yeah,
but yes, look, he did he's guilty of creating a platform where illegal drugs could be traded and sold. I don't think that should be illegal. It is illegal. He's served 11 years in prison for that. He could have taken a plea deal probably where he would have had maybe this amount of time or less, but because he wanted to make the philosophical argument that this shouldn't be illegal, went to trial and got, 2 life sentences plus 40 years.
Yeah, crazy. If the objection is to the sentencing, then I have no problem with
that's what we're talking about.
I guess, without getting it into too abstract an area, the idea that we decide that you or I don't think something should be a crime, which actually is a crime, that doesn't exonerate them. I have thought for years that prostitution should be legalized, but it's not.
Sure.
And so people who participate in it are still committing crimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're correct. I mean, obviously that logic can go, I mean, you know, this, separate but equal public services for white people and black people was the law, and people broke it, and we would say, you are breaking the law. It's just a statement of fact, but it's a good thing to break the law to well, how should I put it? To protest, to try to, you know, work toward changing this law, and I would hope laws around sex work and drug use, you know, between consenting adults, it is not the business, generally speaking, of the states, is where probably we have a lot of agreement.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll have disagreement later. Agreement on that.
Plenty of disagreement to come. Please stick around. Lots more today on Rising.